Hello, you're
Hello.
on Margaret Croom's profile page for Facebook, and we are recording a podcast today. We thought it might be fun to go on Facebook Live while we're doing it, in case you're interested in having a podcast one day to see what we go through to do this. But it's fun, isn't it? This is Phyllis Smith. She's the content manager for eWomenNetwork.com, and so we're doing this together. This is the first time we've done this on Facebook Live. We're recording it, and we're giving tips today on how to do to market your podcast. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we were telling other people to do.
That's right. And we're so excited because we're about to start a recording of a podcast, a weekly podcast that I have on eWNRadioNetwork.com. But we just wanted you to see our setup here. We've got our mics set up, and you probably saw me stand up while Margaret was talking. It's because I'm watching the levels. I had to lower the levels, make sure that the audio was good, and she wasn't just talking over me, because we don't want her to be more important than me, right?
That's right.
Because I'm the host. So, we're very excited to get started, and so are we ready to go?
We are ready to go.
Okay, here we go. So, we are about to start the podcast. Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on eWomen. And let me start again. Sometimes we make mistakes and we have to edit.
And aren't you supposed to look at me?
I'm supposed to look at
Yeah,
No,
you're supposed to look at me.
Well, not for my intro.
Is this SNL?
This is not for my intro. I have to do my intro. I'm doing my intro. Stop bugging me.
You know that SNL skit?
What?
You
Which
know
one?
that SNL skit? The old one where they're at the radio show?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
NPR.
That's us. NPR, yeah.
That is probably one of the funniest SNL.
I know,
moments.
so that's us now, Phyllis and
Right.
Margaret.
Okay.
And we can talk.
Sweaty
not on
balls.
top. Sweaty
That's
balls.
all. That's all I have to say. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on eWomen Network. I'm Phyllis Smith. So, as an entrepreneur, you're always considering new ways to market your business, right?
Absolutely.
Well, the important thing is, how do you stand out from the rest of your competitors? So, I've got to tell you right now, and Margaret is going to attest to this, that if you have not considered a podcast, you better consider it. You should be doing a podcast. That is the trend. That is the way to go. And here's why. Over 40 million people search the iTunes store for content every single month. 40 million. Podcasting grows around 23% a year. The same number, I love this, the same number of Americans who use Twitter listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. Weekly podcast listeners listen up to 5 different shows a week. And the demographic, that's 12 to 54, which is, if you're in broadcast radio, which I was for many, many years, that's where everybody wants to be. Who's number one in age 12 to 54, that demographic? They all listen to podcasts, okay? Right. So if that's your demo, somewhere in there, you need to be doing a podcast. So you got the picture. The thing is, though, if you want to get your podcast heard, you need to know how to market it to the world. So I have brought in, as you can see, Margaret Croom. She is our eWomen Network Director of Digital Marketing, and she's going to give you some tips on how to break through the noise and have your podcast stand out to an online global audience. And I just want to say, Margaret, this is part 4 of a 4-part series on a blog on our eWomenNetwork.com website, and the blogs are all about podcasting. So the first one was about how to start a podcast. The second one was about producing a podcast. The third is about hosting. The thing is, you can do a fabulous show, but if nobody's listening, what's the point, right? So Margaret is here to help us break through and know how to really market and sell, get your show heard.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Welcome.
For inviting me.
I'm so glad you're here.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the first thing I did in the blog talk about content, but from a marketing perspective, what would you say is the most important thing about your podcast in terms of it being heard, being listened to?
Well, everyone's about niche these days, and it's so true, but the number one thing is that you tell people how and not why. People want a bullet point list. They want to be able to know how to do something. So when you're writing the content for your podcast, which you should, don't ever wing it, it should be about the how, not the why. But let's go back to the audience. everything is about niche. Everybody is not your audience. It's about niching it down. It's about what distinguishes you from everybody else in that space. And you can usually think of a reason why. If you've done your research, you know who else is out there podcasting in your space. So make sure you have something that distinguishes you to help you carve that out. So make sure that you know who your audience is. If you don't know who it is, don't do a podcast yet, and don't worry about growing it.
Call Margaret. She'll help you figure it out.
That's right.
Okay, so yeah, it is important, and you do need to know who you are. And this is really, particularly for people who are in business, who are using their podcast as a tool, as content. Content is king and queen.
Right.
Very, very important that you are always producing content, because that's what people want. They want free stuff. Right. So if you give them a lot of free stuff, then maybe they'll trust you. Right? That's kind of how that works.
Right.
All right. So a lot of people, when they do podcasts, they do interviews.
Right.
And so you can actually use your guest as a way to help you market. So explain that.
Well, first of all, with your guests, you're basically scratching their back, and so it's kind of a tit for tat. So when you have a guest on, you need to ask them to help you market the fact that they're on to their own audience and bring them on. And you also need to tell them and show them how, especially if they don't know, about social platforms. Most people know these days, but if you go ahead and give them the text or the copy and the link and all the information that they can just copy and paste, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else, then they're more apt to do it. And so make sure that you nurture your guest, and make sure that they feel very special for being on here, but also don't be afraid to ask them to promote it as well.
One of our hosts, Steve Kidd, one of our EWN Radio Network hosts, Steve Kidd, he's very particular. Once he got established, he was very particular about only choosing guests who had a big social media following.
Right.
And when you do, so explain that.
Well, that's very important. A lot of the different, very successful podcast hosts that I've researched, that is their thing too, is to make sure that they're asking people who have a large following. Now, sometimes that's hard because a lot of people are asking them, so you need to get in their space. You need to tweet them. They need to know who you are. You need to go, you could even go to a blogger or a podcast convention or, some type of networking thing for that, and be able to shake their hand and introduce yourself. And instead of, if you just send them an email, you're not going to get a response. So make sure you're engaged in their podcast too, and comment, and just don't show up to ask to help you. You need to help them.
So I really want to get into some specifics about promoting your podcast on social media. So you say, do not be social only on the day of your podcast or the day before your podcast. Be social every day.
Absolutely.
So explain what that means, and then lay out for us a social media schedule. Like, what would a social media for a podcast schedule look like?
Okay. So first of all, you have to be consistent. Consistency is king or queen. It's what you have to do. People have to see you show up every single day, and talk about your topic. And you can't just the day before post it and the day of post it and then sit there and wait for people to join your podcast. You have to be in it all the time and be consistent. So use a platform like Hootsuite to pre-schedule announcements at least 3 days beforehand, and then 3 days after. So your pre would be introducing what you're going to be doing. Your post will be covering what you did. So always make sure you do 3 and 3. And if you record, I call it, I always like to say, get 6 in the bank. Do 6 recordings, like boom, 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 and get them out there and get your stuff scheduled. And then you'll have it done for 6 weeks. And in that 6-week time, you can be building up for all your other interviews, your other content, and things like that. Be highly organized and schedule your tweets, schedule your Facebook post. Yeah, and then if people respond, make sure you get on there and answer them. Don't ignore them. This social media is not a one-way communication. It is a two-way. Regular radio that you hear on the in your car on the way to work, that is one way. This is two-way, and the same with podcasting, because people comment on there, and they also get on social media and comment, so make sure that you're engaging.
Yeah, and you say post your podcast on your Facebook business page that post to your ideal audience for as little as $5. So you can boost it. So
Yes.
talk about that.
Right. So say you make your announcement that you're going to do your podcast, and you can go into if you have a Facebook page, other than a profile page, you can boost it, and you can pick out your ideal audience. You can pick out their interests. So if you're into finance or getting capital, let's just say for getting capital for entrepreneurs, you can go in there, and maybe your audience is just female, and you can pick females between this age group that associate themselves with business owners or entrepreneurs within a certain mile radius of your city even. Okay, yeah, you're trying to be all over the United States. Okay, say the United States, but know that the most expensive audience on Facebook are women between the ages of 30 and 55. And so just know that. Try to niche it down as best as you can and engage those people. You can also, if it's another particular interest, and it's finance, it's accounting, you can put that in there as well and really niche it down, boost it $10, $15, $20 for a couple of days, and it's worth it.
And I think that's important overall, overarching thing about marketing on social media in Facebook is that the wide net of, wow, I'm broadcasting, I'm sending everybody, the public, this posting that doesn't mean squat.
Right. Squat.
It's about targeting, and you
Absolutely.
can do that on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Twitter also allows, there's something called Stitcher. And tell us about how Twitter allows an app called Stitcher to broadcast from Twitter. That's pretty cool.
So, were you familiar with Twitter before I told you that?
I know
I thought you would.
Stitcher because
Stitcher, yeah,
Blog Talk
Twitter.
Radio, which is our platform
Yes.
for our radio network,
I want to say that
they
right.
push it to Stitcher. They push our hosts' shows to Stitcher and iTunes. So
Right.
I did know about
So
that.
Stitcher gives you this little widget, and when you post or you tweet about your podcast, or your audience gets it, they can just click on that widget and it automatically feeds your podcast through Twitter to listen to. So it's one less step of them going, and so that's another thing you can do. So I looked you up, Phyllis. And you're on there. They're a little behind, They're a little behind. So I'd have to look into how to get them caught up if you're doing something, very current. But if you go ahead and post your podcast out there before you announce it, maybe their scanner, their algorithm that pulls it will do that. So yeah, use Stitcher.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. Well, that's great to know. All right. So I want to get into the most important thing about building loyalty, because even in your business, it's not just about having customers one time. It's about creating loyalty and building loyalty. So what's the most important thing about building loyalty and momentum for your podcast?
Well, first of all, you have to be consistent. I said that a while ago. I'm saying it again, because here's the thing. You start your podcast and you tell your friends and family that love you the most to please listen. So maybe you have 25 on. The second week, maybe you have 30. Some more people jumped on. They told some people, and then you have 50. Okay? Then guess what? You skipped 2 weeks because you had a lot to do, didn't have time, and then when you got on again, you had 5. You have to be consistent. That's why I say bank 6.
Yeah.
Okay, and so here's the other way to create loyalty. Make sure you're listening to your audience. So if they comment on social media, if you have places on your radio platform or your blog to comment, make sure you're listening to them and what they really want to hear. If they ask a specific question, you're like, oh, I know the perfect person to answer that. Just kind of like you did with me. Bring them on, and the more that you give them what they want and the content what they want, the more loyalty you're going to get. They're going to subscribe. They're going to get notifications every time you come on. They're going to tell their other people that are in their circles about it, and that's how it grows.
And so this is also how you create audience engagement.
Absolutely. It's how you create audience engagement. You can also create a private Facebook group yourself and say, hey, who wants to hop over there on my private Facebook group with me, and we can discuss this more. Because when you have a podcast and people comment, then they go away from it. If you're in a private Facebook group, you can continue the conversation in one silo.
Okay. And there's also something called a call to action, CTA.
Yes.
So how can you, inside your podcast, in what we're doing here, how can somebody, or how important is it to have a call to action?
It is so incredibly important. So nothing cracks me up more than a marketer when I've listened to a podcast and it's just over. Bye. Signing off now. Thank you. Bye. Nothing. There's no call to action. What did you want them to do? What did you want them to get out of it? You know, send them, ask them, do you want my notes to this podcast of all my resources that I use to get this information? You can go now on my blog, or you can go here, wherever, and you can download it, and then they give you their email address to get it, you know, tit for tat, and they get that from you. At least it's a call to action. And then you do that over time. Those people may develop into customers. They might develop into a sale of a download that you have, or they might be someone who pays you as a consultant, or whatever it is that that you do. Right. Then they can become a customer. But don't ever end it without a call to action. And that's not always selling. A lot of times a call to action is, tell me what you think about blah 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 blah. Okay, and say, I really want to know this so that I can have the best guest on this show. I love your feedback. I want to know your opinion. That's a call to action.
Yeah. And I know it's important. Our founder, CEO Sandra Yancey also, she talks about seeding in your podcast. Let's just say you're a coach and you have clients. You can be in your interview. You can be talking about, I have a client who I did such and such with. That's seeding. Someone listening will go, they have a client. I like this person. I might want to work with them. Right. So so remember to seed throughout. It's not just all of a sudden it's over. Hey, call to action.
That's right.
Yeah, we need to be seeding it and growing that funnel. Right. So the idea is to get them to come to your website. Absolutely. If you have a download, you can also do a transcription. You can get a transcription service to do your podcast, and then you can post that, and that can be a download.
Well, and that all brings us to more marketing, like email marketing, and depending on what they download, that they downloaded that. So make sure you have the capability through MailChimp, Constant Contact, Infusionsoft to be able to automatically send them a thank you email. And then ask them more questions. And when you ask them more questions, they click on something, automatically put your email in gear to send them another email, another thank you, answering their question, or setting up an appointment. So make sure you nurture those.
Well, now you're a big proponent of email nurture campaign. So what does that mean?
Well, basically, you just don't send an email to someone and sell to them. You have to give them a couple of emails over time where you're basically saying, I appreciate you, and here's some information you might find valuable for where you are in your life, what type of job you have. If this is great information for you, let me know. And then you get the response back. So say you send it out to 100 people and only 15 people respond. You now have 15 people who are engaged with you. It's better than zero, right?
Yeah. Yes. So you say make sure you have an email broadcast platform that allows you to schedule emails and then nurture those who read them with more emails based on what they clicked on.
And it's not more emails just for more emails' sake. It's basically those responding to the people to what they wanted to know. And you having different ones set up there based on what their response is.
You also recommend emailing subscribers as a reminder.
Yes.
How often, when?
Well, a lot of times, like our platform should automatically make the announcement to subscribers or through your RSS feed that your podcast is coming up, click here, and this is when it's going to be on, that you can listen to it. So you want to always try to get subscribers, and those are your loyal people, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people who might just go out there when you post it on Facebook and listen to it and leave, and they don't sign up for it. You want to make sure you're particularly loyal and helpful to those that have actually given you their email.
And those people, like, how do we get our audience, this loyal audience, to help us market our
wherever
podcast?
your platform is, you should have the ability to subscribe for notifications. So make sure you have a form, a contact form, simple contact form. Or if they download, you're going to get it anyway, and then they're automatically going to be in your funnel.
Right. So what we're doing here is another way, either a YouTube, Facebook Live area is a great way to maximize your podcast experience.
Yes.
So isn't this better than just listening? I mean,
yes.
We're having a
That's
conversation.
one of our tips today.
Yeah.
We decided to record this because it's one of our tips, is to record your podcast, because people are voyeurs and they like to watch what you're doing.
This is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing, podcasting. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't hypocrites. So we're recording this.
So do you use your resources during your podcast? So like after 5 episodes, you talk about gathering them up and make a resource download to give away for free?
Yes. You always
Except
think
it's
of
not.
ways.
It's not free.
What's not free about it is you're getting their email address, and so you need to deserve that. So make sure that what they download is juicy. That's what Sandra Yancey likes to say. Make sure it's juicy and it's useful information that they can use, to help their business or their life or whatever it is that you do. Make sure that you do that.
And finally, this has gone very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah. So how can we maximize our exposure on iTunes? After all, iTunes is kind of it. That's the place, right?
Yeah, that's the place. So one of the things about iTunes is they rank you based on reviews. So if you don't have any reviews, no matter how good it is, they're not going to throw you at the top for any reason. But let me tell you something. If you're brand new to the podcast world, brand new, they make note of that. And you're up in the algorithm without doing anything. So if you can go ahead and be new and get people to review you right away, you might get up and displayed in their newest podcast for absolutely free to millions and millions of people. Now that eventually filters out and goes away after about 4 weeks. So if you're brand new, you want to do it right away. But one of the things you can do is ask other podcasters if they will go review you, and be nice, but be constructively critical as well. But go ahead and review, and then always make sure that you ask your listeners as well to feel free, if you came through iTunes to listen to this podcast, make sure that you go review me.
Great. And again, on our EWN radio network, it pushes to iTunes and Stitcher, as we said earlier, and so you can maximize that. For what Margaret just said, by getting those reviews.
Absolutely.
All right, my friends. So all of these fabulous tips, are they going to be somewhere where people can download them, since we're talking about that?
I'm going to, we have them all together. I'm going to upload them to Phyllis's page for her podcast, and you can go and download them, of course. And you can also get information if you would like to be a podcaster. Why don't you tell them a little bit about that, since you organized that program with EWN.
So if you want to be to podcast on our network, the EWN Radio Network, here's it's a pretty cool thing, because if your target demographic is women entrepreneurs between the ages of 35 and 55, then we're 30, the place 55, to be. Yeah. And I have to say, and we've heard this from many of our podcasters, our host, is that when you're part of a network, it just somehow gives you more credibility. It makes you bigger and helps you stand out than if you were just you're a loner. You're just the lone podcast, and then you're just among millions of other podcasts. So when you're a part of the network, you're part of something bigger. And so so that is one of a great benefit for that. And of course, a lot of our hosts also talk about how their guests have become people that could be potential clients for them, that the guests have given them exposure. And then there's people, speaking these days in public, is one very important way to get exposure for yourself. So this is a great way to learn how to speak in public, even though you're behind a mic. But we're not, because you could Facebook Live. But the truth is that it's a great way to learn how to talk to people, how to listen, and how to, really develop those speaking skills. So there's a lot more benefits to it. But if you're interested, go to ewnradionetwork.com. ewnradionetwork.com, and you can click on Become a Host, and there's some more information there. So we would love to have you apply and be part of our wonderful team of just fabulous hosts. So
and we're always looking for engaging, fantastic, different, out of the box radio show hosts, just so we have a great variety for our audience to choose from.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Great information.
Absolutely.
So keep listening. I'm Phyllis Smith. This is Margaret Croom. She's not on all the time, just
today.
Occasionally, just today. Well, I'll be more. We'll do more.
Yeah. They might beg you for more.
They'll beg. Spotlight on eWomen Network. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and until next time.
Peace out.
Wait, I didn't do that.
I know. My sons are probably going, stop doing that. you. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.